just knock about some ideas on that would be useful. So yes, welcome everybody to Brainfood Live on Air, bringing it to you every Friday. Today is a double header. I'm actually in a new place. I'm in Berlin temporarily, my last day here in this wonderful city. Back in time for tomorrow, but I'm having to do this from my hotel room, and I didn't bring my mic, so apologies if the audio is slightly less than optimal for me today. Folks, I hope everyone can hear us okay. Let's do some sound checks before we go much further. For the friends listening on Crowdcast, do let me know whether the audio and visual is okay on this. Let me know on the chat down there. Hello, Carissa. And we are also broadcasting this live on LinkedIn, so we should be out on different LinkedIns out there as well. If you're watching this on LinkedIn, folks, let me know whether the audio and visual is okay, and we should be ready to roll. Let me just check whether I can see myself on LinkedIn. It looks like I am indeed there. That's good stuff. Okay, brilliant. I think. Oh my God. Sometimes things just go crazy when you've got too many devices going on. Okay, that's great. Thank you, Ross. Thank you, Trafina. Great to see everybody here. Okay, let's get on with the show. Firstly, we have to thank our sponsors. Brainfood Live is always sponsored. Every single week, companies come up and are prepared to insist on the conversation rolling forward. And today, I'm really pleased to see so many great recruitment technology innovations coming from the UK, and it's really my pleasure to be partnering with our friends at Pop. Brilliant business, one of the companies that's really made a substantive impact in terms of providing automation solutions for the recruitment staffing sector. So brilliant to see these guys evolve their product. We actually have Sam Desi here, who's going to come on, and I think he's going to say a few words. Why not? Sam's always great value. I know he's mega busy as well, by the way. I spoke to James the other day, and yeah, they're like 25 hours a day kind of thing. So I want to preserve Sam's time. I want to just thank him for coming on and joining us and say a few words. Sam, there you are. You're looking significantly fresher than your colleague James, mate.
Yeah, James has had a wild week, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Fine.
No, you're dealing with entrepreneurship very well, Sam. You're looking like younger and fresher than perhaps you should be, running the rocket ship that is Pop. But wonderful to see you, mate. Why don't you tell us a bit about Pop? Who are you? What it is you do, and what's been going on that's been so exciting for you guys last couple of months?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got a bit of an exclusive as well for today. So Pop is essentially the Palantir for the staffing industry. So we bring a number of different AI modules as well as a bunch of custom engineering work to our customers. And we try and solve 100% of the workflow issue rather than trying to bring a one-size-fits-all product that we think we can try and scale up and repeatably apply to everyone. Recruitment is a very people-heavy business, obviously. Because of that, everyone's processes are slightly different. Everyone's systems are slightly different. So in the early days, when we tried to create this software that we could, try and repeatably provide to everyone, it just didn't work. We can't take that one-size-fits-all approach. So what Pop is today is a combination of lots of different proprietary AI modules that help you facilitate different steps of the process, but then you get a bunch of custom engineering support from us so that we can make sure that it works for you. And as a result, we've been lucky enough to work globally with enterprises like Randstad, Robert Walters, Page Group, Brunel, in the US, AMN Healthcare making a big splash in the US now. It's going pretty well. And we've just released our latest module after a huge amount of customer demand. We are unimaginatively calling it internal sourcing, but it does quite a lot. The way it works is that it will sync your entire kind of candidate database. It will refresh it with publicly available data, so that you can ensure that all of that data is up to date. And then we store it in a way that enables AI to search it. So we're bringing that ChatGPT search experience into your candidate database after refreshing it with the latest data. And from there on, you can trigger a bunch of other pop processes like conversational marketing. Super exciting time for us. So yeah, that's the latest, Hung.
That's brilliant, Sam. And I can totally understand how agencies are totally all over this because there's no bigger collector of CVs than recruitment agencies. But there's probably no greater underuser of the resources they've collected because you just accumulate sort of hundreds of thousands, probably millions of documents, but you're never diving into them and you're never reactivating them. And what ends up happening, you simply have to reacquire them through the front end again, and you end up with multiple sort of versions of the same guy. So yeah, being able to solve that problem, that's a miracle solution, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody is sitting on a gold mine, but they don't have the tools to actually, pick at it and extract the gold. Hopefully, we're bringing that.
Sam, jumping up like a level, right? I'm the CEO of a big recruitment business. What's your pitch to me in terms of like what's the one thing that I'm going to get? Am I going to get increased sales? Am I going to get massive cost reductions? Am I just going to get better? What's the kind of one thing?
We have tried to we've pitched the ROI of pop in so many different ways, and one of the things that really doesn't resonate actually with a lot of people, a lot of CEOs strategically, is this idea of cost saving. Sorry, this idea of not cost saving. Sorry, this idea of time saving. So lots of technology providers out there will promise time savings, and they probably do deliver them, but it's really difficult to actually convert those time savings into cost savings, because what do recruiters do with all of that time? What we've actually seen as we've expanded more and more with our larger enterprise customers is that the way that they look at ROI is that they are able to cost in other areas. So, for example, they no longer have to market as many of their roles as they did before because they're able to use their database. They no longer need to use LinkedIn as much as they did before, and everyone's trying to reduce their reliance on LinkedIn at the moment. They don't need to increase their headcount to increase their capacity. So it's all about cost avoidance strategies, and it really depends on exactly which workflows you want to go after first.
Really,
We're
really
living
good,
in a
Sam.
we're
So go
living in a
ahead.
new world, and companies like Pop are really leading the way.
Thank you.
And you know what, Sam, I appreciate you kind of bringing forward this idea of you kind of exploring what works and what doesn't, both on the product side and also on the pitch side and all of that stuff. This is really, really great to hear from a CEO because oftentimes we only hear, the unvarnished story and the retrofitting of the past. But that's not how it works. Like we have to figure it out as we go. And it's only through this intense interaction with customers that you figure out actually this is what you want. And I think the nuance about avoiding this concept of time saving and switching that to cost avoidance, that's just not semantics. That's a big mindset shift that vendors need to really embrace, because that is what CEOs care about. And that's not only agency side, by the way, folks. I'm really keen for us in the talent acquisition side of it to also understand that the rhetoric about time saving is not what's going to land. It's about expansion of capacity, expansion of scope, doing more, not the less part, right? You got to do the more part. Brilliant stuff. Sam, sitting on this internal sourcing piece, you say it's live right now. What does that actually mean for the market? I guess it's not open market because it's customized, right? So people available for customers, but there's no real try before you buy scenario right now. Is that correct?
No, yeah, and it's not actually fully live yet, but it's almost like a behind the scenes announcement. We're just onboarding our first customer actually they have 1 million candidates in their database. So it's the way that it works. It requires us to actually be able to capture all of the data that is in the ATS and then store it in a certain way. That isn't a simple process. So it is something, the implementation does take a couple of weeks, but once it's done, it's extremely powerful. If you can imagine, today, let's take this one customer. I can't say who it is, but they have 1 million candidates. 400,000 of them are just empty profiles. We've enriched all of them. Right now, they're full to the brim and they're searchable. right? And they're searchable with natural language. So young recruiters don't need to learn how to put together complex Boolean strings anymore. So, it's a whole new world. There's some really powerful stuff that we can enable now.
Brilliant. I've got a great idea for something we should do. We should try and demo some of this if it's possible, or your customers up for doing it, because I think a before and after experience would be really exciting for people to see, like to visualize it, how search before and after on a system. I think that would really say more than any kind of marketing lit could ever do.
Yeah. Sure.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, Sam, listen, I know you're super busy, so I'm going to let you go, but thank you so much for dropping in and announcing some of this good news. Look forward to learning more when this is fully live, and I'll connect back with James and figure out whether we can get something like a demo sorted out in due course.
Thank you both, and shout out to Poetry as well, doing great things. See you soon. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Although doing a whole bunch of things that he just cautioned against. But anyway,
Hey,
out, out the box, time savings. Anyway, yeah.
It's two different paths, though, isn't it? I mean, I think that it's one of these where there's many routes to the top of the mountain, and it's based on your own capacity as to which, on your own interest as to which is the correct path. So I'm just excited to see, UK based companies do get in there and trade. I mean, we need some good news in the UK, and I'm pleased to see it's coming from Recruitment Tech, which is fantastic. Okay, folks, let's get on with the show. I've got a bit of a special today because obviously we're in the middle of November now, and which effectively means we've got like 4.5 weeks left before the end of the year. Incredibly how fast this year has just ticked on by. I think it's basically because the endless chaos that exists in our world today means that it's never boring. I mean, you blink your eyes, and before you know it, 9-10 months have gone by. So now is a good time, I think. We're going to launch a slightly different play on Brainfood Live going forward. It's generally going to be a look back series. So there's a series at the end of November, beginning of December, where we're going to just look back on what's happened at the rest of the year. And then the beginning of next year, we're going to do a look forward and forecast. So the first 2-3 weeks of January, we'll be looking forward what we think is going to happen. Now, to kick us off in that series, what I thought would be fun would be basically to expose my inability to predict anything accurately about the recruitment marketplace. Because every year I write an essay where I'm saying, all right, these 20 things are going to happen in the next 12 months in recruitment. And we're going to use today to basically say, okay, did any of these things happen or not? So that is the purpose of today. Adam is going to come and join me for this because he's basically, I need a critique for it. But what I might do is actually share screen for everyone so you can see what these predictions are. And we're just going to run through them one by one. Let me know, by the way, if you had any predictions that you did last year that you are confident in talking about. But sharing my screen now, folks. So can you see my screen okay, everyone? Adam, can you see it?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, folks, let's go through it. In this case, let's go through one by one. Adam, I said AI assessment mainstreams 50% of high volume hirers, i.e., if you're hiring more than 5,000 hires per year, will have a solution by the end of the year in place, meaning you're going to have an AI applicant screener, you're going to have some sort of AI interviewer in place, you're going to have all of these things. So you look at the high volume hirers, I said 50% we're going to get there. I think people 50% want to get there, but I don't think they have. I mean, I don't know how to prove this. Probably I need to go to a software company that does this and measure their change over time. But yeah, I don't think it's as adopted as fast as I thought. Any thoughts on number one, Adam? Do you think that is the case?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think you've been a bit hard on yourself there in terms of saying that your predictions weren't right, and I think that this one probably is pretty much right. I expect 50% of employers do have something in place to use AI for assessment. It's like, I'm not suggesting they're all using Paradox or POP or something like that, but there are solutions embedded within just about every applicant tracking system now. So even
Mm.
just by switching that on, it's probably not massively more than 50%, but I'm sure it's probably getting towards 50%. I think you're fairly right on that.
All right, that's really good. Simply because I didn't think about the ATSs having some solution like this, but you're right, aren't you? All the ATSs are more or less, if they haven't already implemented something that helps reduce the volume, that module is coming in the next 3 months. You know what I mean? By the start of next year, if your ATS doesn't have some sort of feature that helps you control volume applications, then you probably need to think about either getting a custom solution or looking to switch out the ATS. I mean, what do you think, folks? I mean, are you using, if you're high volume hiring right now, are you still sort of being confronted with tens of thousands of people just applying and having to manually review? Or have you got a solution in place that sort of intercepts that and provides some way to manage that flow down? I think on this, I'm going to say I'm directionally correct, but probably a little bit overestimated in terms of how quickly would adopt.
Well, I think
Yeah.
we can probably split the market for this into three as well, right? So I would say there's the brain feeders who probably all have something in place by now. Then there's like the sort of extended talent acquisition community, who I would say most of them do. But then beyond that, there's a long tail of employers who maybe don't have internal talent acquisition or something like that, and they're maybe the ones that are less likely to. So I just don't know what number of percentage of the market that covers.
Mm, yeah, yeah. Again, I think the only way to figure this out is change over time from one of the volume specialists. So I'm thinking, those products that are specifically designed to handle this use case, where there's loads of applicants coming in, typically, early entry, or maybe it's frontline work. And they've deployed a solution. So I'm thinking like Mackie People or something like that. Maybe Scotty AI, some tools of that type. Like, have they seen, how many more customers have they got this year than they had last? Maybe that's one way to describe it. Or how many
It's also
more?
not. It's also not just the ATSs though. Like a lot of the major job boards have done the same thing. So like Indeed has solutions. There's a whole bunch of them that have solutions in place. And then not just those, but some of the others, like the likes of Vonk and Adway, they've put solutions in place for this type of thing. So
Have
like
they though?
apply processes.
Yeah, so I think everyone's stiffened up the filters, haven't they? And I guess the question is where is that filtration going to be? Is it right at the point of acquisition, as you say, with the job boards? I haven't seen too much from job boards, to be honest. I may need to refresh my understanding there. Is it on the other set end with the ATS? Do they produce something, or is it a middle solution that's a specialist function in between the advert and the inbox? But yeah, interesting spot. I think it's going to continue to grow. I do believe it's probably inevitable that there will be some sort of feature that does some interaction with the candidate before human eyes will see it at the employer's end. I don't think it's possible to kind of think you're going to just place an advert and just have a human recruiter trying to deal with that inbound. That may well be kind of fast becoming a historical anachronism, so to say. It's simply not going to be viable if the volumes of applications keep going up. Let me know what you think, folks. I'd love to get your comments on this. Let's flick down to point 2, skills-based hiring. I was a critic of skills-based hiring. I've returned to being a critic, but by sort of when I was writing this, I actually assumed that skills-based hiring would revive because it would be a way in which employers could describe, their implementation of AI-based assessments. So speaking in plain English, they would say, look, we've deployed this AI assessment solution. We are a skills-based hiring business. I don't think that's actually happened at all. I think skills-based hiring just fell off the discourse. I mean, it seems to me that those two things are not in parallel whatsoever. What are your thoughts on this, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, it ties in with how you finished talking about the last one, which is the volume of applications. If I want to hire an underwater basket weaver, I can advertise for an underwater basket weaver, and I don't need to start looking at people with adjacent skills. So there is the. I mean, one prediction I didn't make about this year was, from my perspective, this has been with the possible exception of 2020, this is the most brutal year I can remember in talent acquisition. In terms of like, companies not hiring, people losing their jobs, and the number of people looking for job opportunities. And I think in faced with that, skills-based hiring is probably just one of these concepts which is considered slightly abstract from the perspective of the C-suite, and therefore difficult to convince them that they should give you the time or budget to move forward with some kind of a program. And incidentally, there's a whole bunch of things in our space like employer branding and diversity and inclusion and candidate experience and all these things. If that's not directly impacting the bottom line, and you can't show how it's directly impacting the bottom line, it's getting no airtime today. And skills-based hiring is one of those. So
Yeah.
I'm a massive fan of it overall as a concept, but it's not it's not increased in the way that you predicted.
Yeah, yeah. It may well be a phenomena of that unicorn period, before the zero interest rate period, where essentially lots of money was being distributed to rapid growth businesses, huge competition for talent, and then the need to kind of increase the top of funnel, which is why, okay, skills-based hiring was kind of like an antidote to credentialism, wasn't it? It was like, you know what, not everyone's going to be able to hire people from these universities. Not everyone's going to compete with Google and Facebook and all this for these top level engineers. Is there another way to surface up the same quality? Let's drop those credentials and then try and assess them. But yeah, that was for a period where there was a war for talent, quote unquote. And these days there seems to be a surplus of talent. So perhaps that has receded away. So yeah, I'm prepared to say I'm literally bang wrong on that. There's no sort of qualification there.
I mean, it ties in with what I just said around the whole like DEI kind of disappearing down the priority list, and I would add into that social mobility as one which has disappeared down the priority list as companies are just fighting to fighting for their top and bottom line and nothing particularly else at this point. So it fits in with that. Skills-based hiring was a great way of like trying to make sure that credentialism was not the defining factor in who gets the job.
Yeah. Maybe we're back to being more of a classist type situation where you can't move up and down between these echelons. But yeah, folks, I mean, just remind me on D&I dropping off the cliff. There was a really interesting presentation by Simon Mullins. I believe that was a month or so ago, where he researched because he obviously runs exec search sort of industry community. And the criteria for C-level execs had a massive spike of, this person needs to have some sort of credibility of D&I. That peaked at 2021, and then it's like dropped off the cliff back to 2005 levels. Probably that's 20 years ago. 20 years ago, we weren't even talking about D&I, so it's literally gone to zero. So yeah, very, very tough times for many of the things that we thought would be pillars of what we're doing. So changed world for sure. Okay, let's crack through. 3, two-factor authentication. 2FA means sort of two-factor authentication on job ads increased 400% as an attempt to suppress increased applicant flow. That's totally not happened.
Are you sure? Because I mean, it's certainly happened in so many other things where you fill something in, then you've got to get a code from your phone. They've sent you a text message. You put in the code or whatever. Is that not? I actually don't know, but I assumed that will have happened.
The only people I'd lean on to verify this is whether the ATSs provide that solution. In other words,
job boards, got
job boards don't. I don't think job boards. Excuse me. Job boards, in my opinion, overall, haven't particularly been strong on filtering on quality. Most of them aren't doing any authentication at all. Like you can just sign up to them. So I think ATSs have been much more concerned about this, simply because by the time you hit the ATS, it's an active candidate. The people, the stakeholders involved and so forth, there's been a demand for it from the employers, which is why leading ATSs like Greenhouse, for instance, have implemented tooling of this type. But I don't think it's as widespread as I thought. And it seems we're not using that basic security measure to do it. And instead we're probably we're stiffening up the sort of the knockout question type stuff to deal with to deal with that side of things, rather than basic cybersecurity type techniques. That's my opinion, but again, it's a number I'm not able to qualify and know one way or the other. So I'd be interested in the community there. Have you encountered two-factor authentication? If you're a candidate, have you been asked, for instance, for a code that's been sent to your phone to verify your identity? If you're a recruiter,
it indeed does do it. Indeed does do it, but it's not universally mandatory.
Right, so you got to flick it on as an employer or something. You got to toggle on a switch.
Yes,
because it does come with expense. You're sending messages to people, typically SMS, and you're adding friction to the process, so it's not straightforward. But I don't think it's increased at all as this thing. Maybe it has incrementally, but not by the numbers I've suggested there.
Yep.
Job applications increased 25% from last year. I'm actually saying that probably has happened.
Much more than that. I think it's much more than that.
Like the applicant flow rate is increased, and we don't know whether it's AI enablement, but I think most people and the data here that I'm tracking is applicant per volume from ATSs. I've got a lot of ATSs submitting information to me on this. And also obviously from job boards and job aggregators that can measure how many people actually go and apply on advert. So I think application has gone forward and gone through. Quick question for you, Adam. Do you expect this to just continue exponentially? Like, is there no end to this? And do we anticipate a future where any advert will simply get, instantly guaranteed 10,000 clicks and X amount of applications because everyone's bot enabled? What are you thinking, man? I think Adam's gone on mute.
Sorry. I think there's two important factors, right? So one is the fact that there has been genuinely more job seekers because there's been more people out at work. I don't expect that to continue. I think that we're going to hit a plateau period where things will start to sort of resettle. And I think we're actually getting to that point. There was like so little happening from April through till August, September. And then since then, I think there's been, I heard this morning from the Recruitment and Employment Confederation that temporary jobs are back on the rise again for the first time this year. So I think that that's a good bellwether for what's about to happen. But in terms of people who are switching on solutions that are just like, keep applying me for jobs, and now like if anybody wants to interview me, then I'll go and see what the opportunities are. I think that'll probably increase, but I don't think it's going to be exponential. Some people will switch that on, some people can't be bothered. But the two things have to happen in sequence, right? And employers and job boards and ATSs need to continue to just make sure that they respond to whatever the trend is.
Yeah, really interesting. I think, some of these tools are actually now becoming very slick. I don't know whether you've seen, products like Sonara AI, for instance. It looks like it looks properly like B2B level tech in terms of how it on the UX and how it's produced and so on. But it's selling at consumer level prices. So, it's like $10 a month. It's going to just apply for you. And you can imagine if you're like a frustrated job seeker, you're manually trying to look for jobs, you're applying, you're spending 20 hours a week, even more sometimes applying for jobs and getting nothing. Does it not make sense to reduce that to, 10 minutes a week and just pay, $10 a month, $12 a month or what have you to get that moving? Really interesting kind of conversation I had 2 days ago at TA Tech, where we've actually started seeing organizations directly monetize on this from the job board side. because the job boards obviously have lots of candidates, right? Millions of candidates. And we're starting to see companies reverse their business model and start going to these candidates and promoting these mass supply tools because they can get $10 a month out of every one of these candidates. So if imagine if you can convert 1 million candidates to $10 million a month recurring.
So
That's
you spoke to
obviously
Rob Brower then, Job Espresso.
no, it wasn't Rob. It was a few of the characters in that scene, but
Okay,
but people have got
characters.
the yeah, they're great characters. I love the
Yeah,
job board scene.
yeah, I do.
But yeah, they can see the opportunity, and also you can see, right, you've got this resource that previously, that was inventory. Now, if you're a job board, the candidates were the inventory, and the customer or the clients paying for job ads. But if the job ad business is kind of going down a little bit and job postings are going down, do you then just reverse it and start monetizing on the candidates, and the inventory turns it turns into the inventory and customer just switch around, and it seems that candidates are paying for this, because they know it's competitive, and you have to pile through. Now, do I agree ethically with this? Question mark. We have to answer. It certainly leads to your point again, Adam, about social mobility, because obviously it's gonna create friction there. Someone with enough liquidity to go spend, let's say 10 to $100 or £100 a month on job search is going to be a better job searcher, but obviously that person's materially better off than someone who can't afford that. In which case there's all kinds of negative implications for society as a whole. But systems are going to kind of evolve, irrespective of moralization. They're just going to happen if there's inefficiencies in the flow here. So yes, I do see this starting to really push forward. Anyway,
The dice are loaded, right? And that's not going to change. There's people, the haves are going to work out ways of continuing to be able to get ahead faster, and I just can't see that that's going to stop.
yeah, it's very, very difficult. And yeah, I'm against moralization generally, because what use is that? Sitting on the sidelines and
Yeah,
moralizing about it. If
yeah.
you're a candidate and you're looking for work and you need to battle away, like, who am I on the outside to say you don't use this? Because probably it does help you. So yeah, we're going to see a lot of this going forward. Okay, moving on. Big round of investment for AI voice interview vendors currently at seed. That has not happened at all. I can't remember a single voice interview vendor that has actually raised. Actually, I probably need to forensically review this. But has any AI interviewer actually raised any cash in your quick top of mind, Adam? I don't think they
Well,
have.
when you say voice, you mean what, phone call ones as opposed to video ones? Is that what you meaning?
What I mean by this is that it's not just people like sending text-based questions, but it's actually a live interactive interviewer where
Yeah, like
you are
MetaView.
responding by voice.
Yeah, I
No,
mean,
I don't think they're not really screening though. I mean, there's still more about doing note taking and stuff like this. And they're now doing sourcing. They've got a lot of talent intelligence, but they haven't deployed an AI interview as far as I'm concerned, or at least as far as I'm aware right now. They probably will in future,
there's not been
yeah.
there's not been a lot happened in this area, no. And I think that the questions would be around the candidate experience, and questions would be around the inability to generate rapport with people, and I just don't think we're really ready for this to be mainstream yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still a fan of it, and I do believe that
Same
voice
here.
interviewing is absolutely going to happen. But we haven't seen the fundraising yet, and so there's one thing.
There's a
Okay,
future for Tengai yet.
I love Tengai, and I'm still devastated that the. I mean, has anyone actually is the robot head still available? I would actually buy that.
Tengai
You know,
is the Sinclair C5 of its time, ahead of its generation,
correct,
and
correct.
to be brought back out in 2035.
I agree. I do believe it comes back, and it'll go down in history as one of the very early pioneers that were just simply too early for it. But they're still going forward. I still think they're doing AI interviewing. They're just not doing it with animatronics, which is disappointing for me. Okay, non-FTE hiring versus FTE increases. We had that report from RAC, didn't we? So I'm pretty confident that's the case, isn't it?
I
Just in
think
terms of
this is absolutely. I think this is absolutely correct, and I don't think this is just a trend. I mean, this is an ongoing thing. Every major organization is going to have less full-time headcount. They're going to get their tasks accomplished in a whole variety of different ways. But certainly, there's no going back to the days of massive head office functions and fixed headcount.
you've got 100 people, Adam, right? You're running a business of 100 people. What is your estimation as to percentage of FTE versus non-FTE in 2026? End of 2026.
30 FTE.
30 FTE. That
Yeah,
means 17 non-FTE.
yeah, and they'll be probably a mixture of contractors working on specialist moment in time, one-off need things, um, possibly outsourcing, probably outsourcing to lower cost locations.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, definitely. I don't think there's any need for more than 30% of your headcount to be fixed term, fixed contract.
That is a tech entrepreneur talking. So I think Adam would probably accept he's on the sort of the margins of that view. But I think if you were building a business really from scratch, probably that would be the distribution. I'd be a bit more conservative if we kind of expanded scope to include some of the more legacy businesses and so on, where there's obviously residual sort of resources. But I think that's the general trend, right? Non-FTE is going to increase, FTE is going to decrease. That is what organizational flexibility ultimately means. That's got huge implications for us in TA, because it means we have to expand scope. We can't just look at payroll and people on payroll. We have to be bigger and dealing with this. Related point number 7, average internal TA team follows the trend, in fact, exceeds the trend and goes 25% non FTE. So I guess the question here is, has the TA team themselves actually exceeded the general population within the organization? I'm tempted to say it has, I'm in Berlin right now and I'm speaking to local recruiters here, and more than a couple of times people have said, yeah, it looks like the market has gone entirely to fixed term contracts, which is basically basically non full time. It is full time, but it's fixed term. So maybe I need to be a bit more forensic with my taxonomy here. But the concept of permanently hiring someone in TA seems to be receding. It's like, okay, we need you here for 6 months, and then we'll look at it again in 6 months or something like that.
Well,
Seems to be a
I think
pattern.
Berlin's a very skewed kind of view of the world because, of course, it's a tech city, it's a startup city. There is a very transient population, and people are used to working in that kind of way. So I think that doesn't necessarily reflect the full kind of global TA environment. However, like again, directionally, I absolutely agree with that, and I think that there is a big. I think RPOs are going to continue to grow, and I think that like a lot of people leaving TA right now are in 12 months' time going to have a great little business with half a dozen people working for them doing short-term RPO work for lots of different customers. So I think there's going to be a lot more boutique RPO, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's more than 25%.
Yeah, you know what I think is going to happen? I think we're going to have a lot of part-time RPO, part-time recruiters, essentially, meaning that there's a lot of people in TA or were in full-time TA. Let's say a talent acquisition crunches down in terms of absolute numbers, but also it kind of the ones that are still sort of trading in there, and now more percentage of is non-FTE. Then you're going to get a lot of people that might dip in and out of TA. Do you know what I mean? They'll end up doing other things, but they may still have half a dozen customers, or half a dozen people that have hiring needs that would call upon them to do the odd bit of work. And it's like, okay, fine, I can go ahead and do that, at very low cost to them, and therefore high value to the end customer. So, probably one of the predictions I made, and it's coming down to 19, which is the idea that there may be a platform that is able to unify all of that, and marshal, basically have an Uberized workforce of recruiters, is what I'm saying. But as of yet, we've yet to see that. Maybe it's something that happens in 2026, because I think it is powerful to have basically people who've got skill, got experience, but no longer want to, or no longer are able to, rely on that as the single sort of stream of income. But you know what? If there's a project on the go and they're happy to take it on, then you crack through. They can do it. Whereas Joe Blow on the street can't. So yeah, very interesting to see what happens with TA in terms of our distribution. Cracking through on this. Rec load on Recruiter, has that increased 15%? I think so,
Yes,
mate, hasn't it?
definitely.
That's a yes
Oh,
straight away.
definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And driven by two things. Number one, of course, teams have been shrinking. And number two, the implementation of AI and other forms of technology which are removing busy work. So I would say it's more than 15%.
Yeah, I think it has actually gone up to 15%, if not more. But there's more to come, isn't there? Like, we don't know what the right number of requirements is per recruiter, simply because technology is moving so fast that we're in a situation where what was true today may not be true tomorrow. So yeah, we're in a very interesting place, but I think we can all anticipate the expectation that rec loads will increase. We just don't know where that increase ends. Number 9, percentage of solo TA functions goes from 73% to 83%. 73% was from research from Emma Mirrington's survey. So we're leaning a little bit on that. Probably need Emma to come in and let us know what the percentage is of this. Right. The reason why I predicted this was related to some of the earlier stuff we talked about. More AI enablement means smaller departments, and eventually you might end up getting, particularly for a company that's sub 200, maybe even sub 500 headcount. Maybe one recruiter could do it now with lots of sort of TA enablement. So yeah, 73 to 83%. What do you reckon, Adam? Is that make sense to you or not?
Yes, it does. I think it just fits in with the trend of people doing more with less, and it fits in with the trend of more outsourcing and non-FTE within talent acquisition. And yeah, I mean, I can see it. I can see it a lot. I can see a lot of teams where there were maybe 6 people in the team. There's now one, and that one person is got a few people from Seed or Talentful or somebody like that who are working in the business. And I'm talking about fairly large-sized organizations. I think companies like, I'm not going to mention them just in case I get it wrong, but there's a few well-known organizations where it's pretty much all outsourced.
Yeah, I think it ebbs and flows, definitely ebbs and flows on this. Okay, cracking through. 10, TA teams continue geographical dispersal. So I guess what this means is we're going to move more TA jobs to lower cost jurisdictions, simply because it makes sense for us to do that. Why would you have a recruiting team in New York, let's say, if everyone's working remote? Should you not put them in Buenos Aires, for instance, and pay 25% of the cost? I think that has occurred. Again, I need to verify how that works. I haven't got a measurement on this, but general trend of more jobs in low cost places relative to high cost places. I think that's probably true.
Yeah, I agree it's true, but I think it's a moment in time because the work that's been moved is like busy work. It's TA coordination. It's that type of stuff. And that's been moved to India, companies like HSBC and Wipro and business like that. They've got huge talent acquisition organizations there. But the work that they're doing is the work which is getting automated right now. So,
you're
kind of
saying it's a temporary push because automation eventually eats that as well, right?
It does. It depends. And South Africa is a little bit different. Vanessa's just commented that loads of setting up teams in South Africa at the moment. That's a little bit different. But yeah, certainly things like coordinating interviews and things like that. That's just, that's not a thing that needs to happen anymore. They've been moved from London and New York to India, and I think that's not really, those jobs are not really, needed in the same way
Yeah.
that they have been.
Yeah, and maybe you're right in the sense that it's a stepping stone to full automation when the time comes, right? So
That's it.
it's almost like remote is a stepping stone to offshore, offshore's a stepping stone to automation. Eventually that job just gets systematized completely and the human beings don't need to be doing it. So yeah, I think there's probably on trend to that. But we'll see how we go. 11's interesting, mate. More companies decentralize talent acquisition, meaning employers will directly sort of have hiring managers directly do outreach. I think this will definitely start happening more, but I don't know whether it's happened already at 10% or more. The reason why I'm confident about this, by the way, is simply that we know that candidates respond better based on the identity of the person sending the message. It's far less about what's said in the message, but far more about who is saying it. And the hiring manager basically triggers more response. So why are recruiters sending the message? Now that you've got AI to support message composition, you've got AI to support generating a list of candidates to be messaged. Do recruiters step away from that and hiring managers step up and start doing a lot of this outreaching? I think that's an inevitable sort of trend way as well. But again, I'm not sure how we qualify whether it has yet increased in 2025. What are your thoughts on this, mate?
Yeah, I also don't know whether it's increased, but it definitely is. I can see solutions that are getting developed, which are kind of making that happen on an autonomous basis. Just going back, like some time, in my first business, 2009 till 2015, was called Social Media Search, and one of our core solutions was called Exec Connections. We would just take over a hiring manager's LinkedIn profile and get them connected ongoing with lots and lots of potential candidates, and like basically, on a concierge done for you basis, run their LinkedIn profile as a recruiting channel. And we did it for big companies, we had as customers. And, we'd be running like 50 hiring managers, their like LinkedIn accounts all the time. So because it just worked. So, the fact that it hasn't kind of gone mainstream quite yet, but it fits in with the concept. We've talked about this a few times on Recruiting Brainfood about hiring manager self-service. And of course, if they have to do a lot of work, this is never going to kick off. But if they press a button and, the AI agent finds all the people, reaches out to the people on their behalf using their profile, whether it's email or LinkedIn or whatever it is, yeah, it's only a matter of time. I don't know whether it's gone up by 10% or not. So a lot of these, I think, yeah, this is great. I posted just slightly cheekily earlier today. I went onto this LinkedIn post and I said, these are great predictions for 2026.
Too early, mate. Sort of premature predictions. But there we go. Yeah, it's very interesting, and yeah, I think the hiring manager outreach, if that increases, then obviously again, recruitment job is going to just shift. It's going to shift away from the operation side and more into the orchestration, architectural side. That may potentially be an elevation of status of the job, but it probably also means less people doing that job. So we've got to think very carefully as to where we invest our time and energy on this. Okay, candidate resentment stabilizes. So in other words, it was at record low in 2024. I think I said it wouldn't go particularly any worse. It's like candidates generally have just accepted it's terrible. And they're no longer shocked at bad candidate experience. What are your thoughts on that one, Adam?
Yeah, entirely agree. They fully expect it, and that's why they've needed to go into like it's a numbers game kind of approach, spray and pray type of approach, put in as much automation as possible. And I think it's got worse. I think it's got a lot worse actually, and I think the level of trust has got worse. But it's not just like a candidate-employer relationship. Human to other groups of humans relationships have absolutely got worse.
Yeah, that seems to be the sense, doesn't it? And in a weird way, the candidate use of automated mass supply is kind of an acceptance of the badness of the system, and a resignation that it's not going to get better. So you might as well use these tools, and perhaps everyone becomes less emotionally invested, essentially. In the experience, they just know it's crap, and you've got to go through it. It's kind of like filing your taxes, isn't it? It's a horrible experience. You're just going to power through it, and you know. Do you moan about it all the time? What's the point? Chief Automation Officer. Does that become an industry talking point? I've tried to make it a talking point, but no, it's not happened. That's 2026, isn't it? It's not. It's not sort of being the same level of Chief Diversity Officer in 2020, where everyone was talking about you need to have this function. I've not seen any particular momentum behind having the idea of someone who's focused on automation as a core function, and certainly not at C level. I don't think that's moved in the industry in the general case. What are your thoughts on that, Adam?
Is it not embedded within the concept of transformation? Jonathan Kestenbaum, I don't know whether this originated for him or not. He said that we're moving into transformation instead of business as usual, transformation as usual, TAU. And those people are typically sort of tech people, aren't they, with a big emphasis around automation. So I think it probably has going to happen, just not with that job title. I think it's transformation.
No, but this is what I mean, though. I think I was speaking specifically about the isolation of the function into a specific identity, and I think it hasn't happened. I think you're right; it stays within a function. It's not emerged as a separate role, and maybe that's Jonathan. I'd
It's
love
cuckooed it.
Yeah,
it's cuckooed it. It's become the cuckoo of the transformation area, right? Automation is the thing, I think.
Maybe it is. Maybe that's the solution to all inefficiencies, to automate more. So there's no need to have like a separate person necessarily to drive it or own it. It's just diffused into the rest of the organization. Yeah, very interesting. Let's keep going. Number 14, DEIB, Clear Atlantic Divergence in 2025. So this is me kind of recognizing that Trump is explicitly anti-DEI. He's going to say it, but do so in such a way that Europe cannot possibly agree and endorse it. And therefore, there'll be a clear separation. I think there is separation. I'm not sure whether Europe's brave enough to really face Trump down on it. But generally speaking, I see Europe continuing down the trend of at least the values of diversity and inclusion, whereas the US, I think, is retrenched quite badly, to be honest. That's my sense of it. What are your thoughts, Adam?
I mean, I don't really spend much. The only places that I really spend time work are the UK and the USA over the last couple of years. So I don't really know the scene so much in mainland Europe, but I would have said the UK is basically just the same as the USA now. I don't think there's been progress. I think there's been the opposite of progress. I mean, look how many people in the UK were in D&I jobs and now no longer are. They don't exist. There's not the programs have retrenched in the same ways they have in the USA now.
Yeah, I would say there's a big difference though when you've got the president, the leader of the country, literally explicitly blasting people off and not looking right and stuff like this. You know what I mean? Or not looking right, quote unquote. Let me make sure I do the air quotes on that, because the UK, even if you went right wing, the Conservatives, I would even say Reform, even they would not be as explicit as what we're seeing in the US. And in a weird way, we've kind of like somehow normalized it. But this is a deeply unusual administration and a deeply unusual cultural moment, I would say. So yeah, is there Atlantic divergence? I'm not sure it's clear. I think there is divergence, of course. But yeah, this is probably where you and I disagree a little bit. I think maybe the divergence is there, but we're a bit afraid to say so directly to Trump's face, basically. Okay. Another UK US, deeper economic integration, meaning percentage of new UK based TA jobs from US employers increases. I'm basically saying that US companies will essentially form a bigger part of the UK economy because they're simply much better resourced and can see a deeper opportunity. Again, I don't know whether that's true. I need to figure out how exactly I need I need better data on this. But what I'm saying is that the new jobs in TA that have been created over the last 12 months, there's been a rise in the relative share of those coming from US headquartered multinational corps. What are your thoughts,
I
Adam?
would have
Yes,
said
no?
I would have said no, because I don't think there's been such a tiny number of new TA jobs. And I don't think that there's a greater number from US corporations on the basis that they are economically in a stronger place. I think that US corporations are also more likely to be automating things at a faster pace than anybody else. So I think that offsets your point about their economic strength. So I wouldn't. I don't have any evidence, but I don't think that's happened. There's just been so few. It's been such a brutal year.
It has been tough, no question about it. Very, very tough indeed. And by the way, we've seen lots of evidence of the toughness of this, and without being a kind of a Debbie Downer, but there's different data points to establish this as generally true. And I'll probably write about that in a little while, because it is worth talking about. Okay, moving on really quickly on the agency side, I say global staffing agencies revenue and profit will decline again, another 10%. I'm pretty certain that's happened, hasn't it?
More than
Global
10%.
hiring.
Yes, that has happened. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 3 years in a row, mate. I mean, basically all of the big boys who are globally exposed, we're talking about global economic growth, fairly anemic, and that hurts all recruitment. So I think that's happened. I've said a mini sort of return for RPOs, a mid-sized agencies, a bit of a bounce back as the recruitment that does take place. TA teams don't no longer have sort of the internal resource. Has there been a mini bounce back? Again, I'm not so sure. What are your thoughts on this, just in terms of your vibe check on that, Adam?
So I work closely with RPOs, and I can tell you that there was nothing happening whatsoever from about April till August, and there are the results of bids and things are all starting to come to fruition. So there is going to be a bounce back, but like nobody's going to see it really until probably December, January, February. And there's a lot of decisions in the UK in particular. There's been a lot of decisions are just on hold until the budget.
The budget, yeah, I
Yeah.
totally agree. It's hard to know because there's been big decisions at government level here which affect basically cost of employment. So that has two effects for us in recruitment, obviously, because we are recruiting sort of individuals for companies, but we are also companies as well. So that has an impact. Okay, cool. Moving on quickly, only got 2 minutes. RecOps talent intelligence roles declined 20%. EB roles declined 30%, but P&C roles increased by 15%. General thoughts on that? I think talent intelligence definitely declined. I would say
I think RecOps has gone up.
RecOps has gone up, yeah, in my
I think
opinion.
RecOps has gone up. Employer brand has gone down by more than 30%, like a lot more than 30%, I think. And I mean, all I can tell you about enablement, about talent acquisition enablement. That's been a growing area. There was 100 people in that globally this time 3 years ago. There's now over 400. So as we go through like more maturing within talent acquisition, people and culture, I don't know whether that would have increased or not. My instinct is probably not.
Yeah, my feeling on people and culture was simply that would be a place where a lot of TA functions would simply expand scope to deal with people and culture generally. And I think, yeah, hard to verify. I need to just LinkedIn that and get data from LinkedIn to say how many of these jobs have been created. But I don't think some of these were correct. I think TI's gone down, EB's gone down, RecOps, I hope, will go up, because I think that is the big white hope of recruitment, is that we need more operations people to increase the efficiency. Okay, last two to go. I think we can go this really quickly. Number 19, someone Uberizes the legion of fractional TAs out there. Probably this is Indeed. No, it hasn't happened. I still think someone's going to do it.
Yeah,
but yeah.
No, this hasn't happened, but the Uberization of work is definitely happening, and Mercor is a perfect example of that. As people are getting paid to do tasks more, so I think that will end up happening in talent acquisition, but I would expect 2027 rather than 26 because that is a huge job.
Yeah, yeah. And the final one here, half these predictions will prove directionally incorrect, which I think is correct, but 20% will be absolutely correct, which is not true because at least 50% were absolutely correct. Incorrect, should I say. Dear. Anyway, I think that's about it for this session. So Adam, thank you very much for joining me and battering through that. Folks, I hope you enjoyed this strange version of Brainfood Live. But I thought it'd be when you're making predictions, I think you got to be held accountable for them. One thing that is true, I will be writing another predictions post in the next couple of weeks. I will also be validating a lot of the things that I'm saying as well. It gives me hope that I was wrong. Because what it means for me is that the future is uncertain, and that anybody who's speaking very confidently about what's going to happen, that is probably something that is a flag that's colored red. You need to have uncertainty and embrace that. And it gives me hope, which ultimately means that we can shape the future that we're all living in. All right, that's it. Adam Gordon, thank you so much for joining. Everyone else, thank you for joining Brainfood Live on air. We're going to be back in very short hour because I'm going to be doing a double header on DE&I and cybersecurity in about an hour or two. So follow the channel if you want to tune in for that. Otherwise, I'll see you next week.